So this is our second video with Paul Curcio. And Paul, how many years were you a historian?
Oh, probably about 10, 12 years. Let's see, my dad, he died in the year 2000, and then I took over until, well, I guess it was only 7 years until Joe's daughter died.
Yeah.
That I just didn't want to do anything anymore. So.
But there's nobody any more knowledgeable in all of Belfast than you, Paul. And so what I'm doing on our next video here is, we talked a little bit about ghosts in the first video. I know we're going to talk more about ghosts as we go along. But let's move down a little bit to the Canal Warehouse. Can you talk about the history of that wonderful historic place? I've been in it with all the cubicles up on top, and there were shootings outside, and we want to record it for history so we know what went on there.
Yeah. Well, the Canal Warehouse was, first it was just, it was built like in 1854. And it was built by Rail and Titsworth from Dansville. And so it was, primarily for the canal, for the things they shipped, the lumber, the grain, I don't know how they got coal, but they had coal there, whether they must have picked it up some other place. And they, it was, there's not much I know about it. That the only thing I know is that the people that owned it, they laid out a bunch more streets up here on our end of town. I've got the names of them, of the streets and everything, because they figured Belfast was really going to grow. So they put in all these streets all around, down through there and all over the place. But that never happened. But then after the canal went out, of course, then the railroads were booming, and Ma and Mike DeCilio from Italy took over the place and turned it into a bar and a
you can say it.
And a whorehouse.
About what year was this, Paul?
This was about 1900, early 1900, 1905, somewhere in there. And there was, 3 hotels up here on Belfast End. There was the Globe behind McKelvey's. I could just remember part of it, and I got a picture, some pictures of it. Doesn't show here, but it does show. But then there was the Gleason. That's where Mike Preston lives. That was a Gleason. It was more or less of a, I don't know whether they served anything, but it was more like a rooming house, I guess. Or maybe it was a hotel. I never knew much about. And then on the corner was a bakery. And then Ma DeCilio's, that's where all the railroad men came, and that was a place where they had all kinds of trouble, all kinds of fights all the time. And I know some people like to come up with the constable on the wall, because he said that if he came up on his own, he always got beaten up, and so he didn't dare to come up by himself.
Now, who didn't? Who was that?
That was the guy's name was Bricky Thompson.
Oh,
and
the constable. He was the constable.
No, he was the guy that always came up.
He always came out. He wanted a little support.
The constable. Okay.
Yeah, it was Chalker was the constable. I can't think of his first name.
Yeah.
I should have it. I should know.
He'll come back to you.
Yeah. And, of course, this is a stop-off point for the B&S to change engines. They came from Gelton, Pennsylvania. They came to Belfast, and they'd let the engines rest, and they'd take a new engine and a new crew. So the other crew would stay over, and of course, when they did, they'd come in and drink and fight, and all those people were really rough and tough.
You've showed me where the railroad depot used to be. You've taken me inside and shown me, was it the low ceiling where the bar part was, maybe in the front? There, and then is there 3 floors or 2 floors? And the 3rd floor was the cat house?
Well, mostly the 2nd floor.
Mostly 2nd floor.
Yeah, and so in the transcripts from the trial, to try to figure out where everybody was the night they shot Chalker and Gleason.
Now, you didn't talk about that yet. When do you mean they shot Chalker and Gleason? What happened?
Well, there was a rowdy bunch, and they, I think Chalker tried to keep them in line, and these guys resented it, so they were always looking for a fight. But
And he was the policeman, Chalker.
yeah. He was the only law officer that was ever killed in, that's in Allegheny County. Well, there was another state trooper, but
So how did that transact, Paul? He came up. What happened that led to him getting shot?
Well, there was a rowdy bunch, and one of the BNS men supposedly kicked over the stovepipe to the wood stove in the bar. And Mike DeCilio told him to calm down and cut it out. And Chalker was there, and whether he did something to try to stop it or what, but when he went through the door, they knocked him down and were kicking him. Now, this is the thing. They had all these people there. I'm not sure just how many, but nobody would tell just what happened. And while they had him down kicking him, one of them walked up and shot him right in the heart.
Oh my gosh.
And they shot, I don't know how many times. Well, then Bruce Gleason came running over to the hotel and see what the commotion was. And for some reason, they shot him too.
He was a neighbor?
He owned the Gleason Hotel.
Ah, yeah, okay.
And so, he's right across the road from where Mike Preston lives. And so they must have had some grudge against him too, because, why did they shoot him? Well, of course, he didn't die right away, so they were going to take him to Buffalo on the BNS, Buffalo and Susquehanna Railroad. So the engine they had, it's not like they just jumped in another engine and took off. They had to build steam. They had to build steam in the engine, and so that took, I don't know how long. It took half an hour,
Sure.
I don't know for sure. And so they got it going, and of course, on the way to Buffalo, he died.
Oh.
Because they couldn't get there quick enough,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't have anybody to really do whatever they had to do to save his life here.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Did you say something about that they chased the culprits down through Ormo or something?
that was a different one.
Oh, okay.
That was another that happened 2 years before.
Oh, in the same place? Or
Well, it was in the
just across the street at
the depot. In the
Yeah, just across the street at the
yeah,
depot.
Yeah, and of course that's a whole nother story.
Well, go ahead.
Well, in 1907, there was they were coming to Belfast because they were making a lot of illegal booze,
Yeah.
and so it's funny what they said. Illegal bug juice, they called it. And so they weren't paying the taxes on it. They were making it and selling it. So they sent some revenue officers out of Rochester down to look into it. Well, they were Italians too, and they came down, and Giuseppe Sanducci worked in the bakery on the corner, and he worked with Mike DeCilio that had the bar. I don't know whether he was employed by Mike. And when he went over to the depot, he'd get freight and stuff and bring it over, whatever, to the hotel, the DeCilios. And so when he was over there, the detectives, they started picking on him. They all spoke Italian.
Yeah.
And so they were picking on him, and he the last straw was they threatened to throw him under the engine when it came through. They said they were going to throw him under the engine. So, back in those days, the Black Hand, they called it, was like part of the mafia. They were, he was really worried about that. He didn't know who they were, supposedly.
Sure.
And so he thought, well, I'm not going to put up with that. So he went back to the bakery and got his pistol, came back and shot both of them.
Oh my gosh.
One of them died, one of them didn't. But so he ran up on the BNS, and he ran all the way to Crawford Creek, I guess, on the BNS, and the law officers, different ones, it was were after him, and they chased him down finally and caught him and brought him back to Belfast and put him in the jail they had down on the big curve.
Yep.
And they locked him up in there, and it was always a mystery because they said he had something and he threw it. First thing he did was throw that in the fire, and they never knew what he threw in the fire. You know. So, but he was one of the first ones to be electrocuted, I think, in all where was it? In the prison in
Oh, okay.
Attica?
no, it was not Attica. It was Auburn, I think.
Auburn.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
yes. We've been by there.
Okay.
And so I know as they were going to electrocute him, they said asked him if he was sorry or if he had any remorse over the murder, and he said, "Nope. If I had a chance, I'd do it again."
This is Sanducci, the guy
Yeah,
at the
just
bakery.
something- yeah. So he was.
Wow.
Wow.
Now, this might even be another story, but there was something that you told me once. I don't know if it's related to either one of these stories you just said or a different one altogether, but something about a murder happened. It took years to find the guy, and by then everybody was dead, and he had let him go
Yeah,
or
that
something.
was the same one. That was they never found anybody. They never convicted anybody of the Chalker and Gleason murder.
Oh, the first one we talked
Yeah,
about.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
The one with all the witnesses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one with all the people.
They never really.
Well, they blamed it on the Italians, of course.
Right.
So, but this is just the lawyer claimed that he knew who it was, and that did the questioned all the people and
Yeah.
everything. And he said it wasn't Italian; it was one of the guys on the BNS. But if you read a lot of the history, you can see why they blamed the Italians. During one of the transcripts, there was another stabbing and death in one of the Italian camps amongst themselves. And one of the law officers that were there, one of the judges, said, "Well, you knew about that. Why didn't you go up there and arrest somebody?" He said, "If you think I'm going in amongst that bunch, you're out of your mind." Because they had nothing to lose. Those people, they.
Well, talk a little bit more about that. This is the one that is at the Erie Canal House where they were shot. But talk a little bit more about how this person they went to trial years later and got off. How did that work?
Well, like I said, like you said, that there was really this was I don't know how many years later, 20 years later.
Yeah.
They found who they thought it was in Louisiana, and they brought him back here, and they tried to get him for the murder, and there was no witnesses by then. There was nobody that really could say that he was the one, so they had to let him go. So there was no evidence.
Wow. Belfast sure is a town with a lot of interesting history, that's for sure.
Oh man, I'm telling you, there's another incident I was reading about. They had an overcrowding. They didn't have enough. They didn't have enough room to house all these people that came in, and so somebody had a boarding house. Well, there's a lot of them around here. They boarded Italians, and when they came to, some of these Italians came to stay there, and there was no room, and they got in an argument because they said they couldn't stay there. So one of them hauled off and shot the guy that had but it didn't kill him, but he shot him, and I mean they shot people like
It's like the Wild West.
oh yeah, and then down there where the Enders have their law office.
Yes.
That was called Charlie's. There was a store there called Charlie's, and they sold, all kinds of things, vegetables and fruit and candy and all that stuff. Well, at Charlie's, and so this guy walked in and asked for a change for I think a $10 bill, and so his wife went and got the change and gave it back to him, and he gave it to the guy, and the guy hauled right off and shot him right in the head and killed him right there. That was
Wow.
Yeah.
Now that's in the building. It's right below the Masonic
Yeah, yeah,
Masonic
on the
Lodge
corner,
now,
yeah.
right?
That was called Charlie's.
Yep. Right now
So-
that's owned by Bronwyn and Shane Enders, right
right.
down there.
Yep.
Wow. Paul, that's about 15 minutes. I'm going to end this video, and then we'll go to another topic here in just a minute.
Okay.
Hang on.